and welcome to my channel, where I talk about my life in grad school and what's going on and give you tips. Today, it's going to be a very different video because it's going to shift from talking about school primarily to talking about life. As you probably guessed from the title of the video, it's talking about miscarriage. So when I first started out the year, I became pregnant, I think around January, and we weren't planning to get pregnant. It was an oops, so it was unplanned, but we were excited when we found out that we were going to have a child, but I had a miscarriage like a month later, so I was very early on, and it took a toll on like my physical body and my mental health, and definitely how I handle stress, and it put some things into perspective for me, so I'm going to talk about that. So basically I found out I was pregnant and I was excited and I was a little bit nervous though, because I didn't know what that would mean for school, because we talked about having kids, but we were planning on doing it later on. We were planning on trying later, we didn't want to do it this early, but life happens. And so I was trying to figure out, what does this mean for me with school? What are policies that I need to be aware of with school? Are there maternity leaves for people who are expecting children? And both my schools have maternity leaves because it's the law. Well, it's the law. I don't know if it's like federal law or if it's state law, but my schools, it was law. So there are policies in place, and I wasn't going to contact anybody just yet because I was so early on. I wanted to wait, until I was like farther along to start like making those like plans and stuff. But it didn't end up mattering because I ended up having a miscarriage, like I said, a month later, and or not a month later, actually a week after I found out I was pregnant. So in that week of being pregnant, we were excited and everything, planning and, just excited, and my body was exhausted. Even just like that early on in pregnancy, your body's doing so much where you have no energy, your face is breaking out, everything stinks or it doesn't stink. Sometimes things smell amazing and you're hungry and you want whatever that is, and sometimes things smell awful, and then I was also like having crazy, like I was just getting angry at everybody for small reasons. Like I would get mad at like people at work and for just the smallest things, and I'd get mad at my husband for small things. It was just, I didn't realize, like, being even just that early on in your pregnancy, how much it takes a toll on all of you, because it makes sense because you're growing a person, but I mean that person is like super tiny at that point, so you wouldn't think that it would just wreak havoc on your body, but it does. So I was exhausted, but that didn't stop me from keeping up with my usual schedule and acting as if nothing was different. I was preparing for, a baby pantry, which is where at my job we give away free baby items to women in the area, not women in the area, but single parents, whether they're women or not, in the area. And I was helping some of our clients with night school, like going to, not night school, but like night classes with career coaching and career readiness and things like that. I was doing things like helping them with their babies and helping them babysitting. I was babysitting 2 infants one night. I was moving around some boxes. I was doing this and that. I was still seeing my clients every day. I had homework all the time. And I had supervision. I had so much going on. I really don't know how I got through the first semester of this year, and I don't know how I'm going to survive the second half of this semester, because it's probably going to be pretty similar to that semester, but because I have extra classes that I am taking now too, or not now, but I will be taking in the second half of the semester. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. I was, stressed. Anybody with my schedule would have been stressed out. but I was also pregnant, and so that was worse. So I had miscarried, and that took another toll. I mean, I took a week off of work because I was miscarrying, and I honestly didn't care about work anymore. Like, I was like, everything seems so stupid now. Like, everything seems so futile, and nothing really matters because I'm going through this, and I don't care about anything else. I don't want to hear about anything else. I don't care. Interestingly, though, I was still seeing clients. I didn't have that attitude when it came to providing therapy. It actually helped to provide therapy because it helped me get out of my own headspace and focus on the people in front of me and doing therapeutic things with them and doing supervision and continuing to learn from my supervisors. That was like actually a healthy thing for me, but my job was like the poison, I'm going to call it, in my life at that time because it was like sucking everything out of me. So I just needed to be away for a week for that. And so I did. I took that week off. The doctor, okay, so I'll tell you about how it happened. And this is probably why I had that attitude towards my job. It happened at work. It happened while I was at a conference or a huge meeting with affiliates and the board. And I felt like I had to pee. So I went to pee. I saw blood. And then I was like, that's a lot of blood. That's like period blood. That's not spotting. That's period blood. Oh, this video is a little bit graphic. Oh, well. And so I went back to the meeting. I should have just left immediately and said, I'm going to the hospital. Goodbye. But I don't know. I was just trying to keep up appearances, I guess, which I don't know why we in the society or any society feels like when we're going through anything traumatic, we still have to keep up appearances. What is that? Where does that come from? Who cares? Let go of appearances. You have to deal with the crisis. That's what I would tell myself right now, but I didn't. I didn't tell myself that. I sat there and finished the stupid meeting, and then I left. And I went to urgent care because I thought that urgent care was the place you go to because I felt like it wasn't an emergency, but I felt like it was urgent. So, but the urgent care lady told me, we don't deal with this here. She pulled me aside and she said, we can call you an ambulance to go to the ER, or I can just tell you where to go. And then she gave me a hug, and she could tell I was distraught because I was bawling my eyes out on the way to the urgent care, and I was trying to pull myself together enough to be able to drive to the ER. I get to the ER, they check me in immediately. They do blood work and ultrasound, and basically everything is non-conclusive because I had never had an appointment before then because I was so early on. So they had my HG, I think it is, HG levels were 9, which is super low, and they couldn't find anything in the ultrasound, which is obvious. The ultrasound technician told me that she wouldn't be able to find anything, probably because I was so early on in my pregnancy. So basically everything was non-conclusive, and the NP, the nurse practitioner, she made me feel a little bit comfortable. She said she made me feel normal. She didn't make me feel abnormal because she said that she sees this every day. Obviously that doesn't help the situation. That just makes me sad for the other women that she sees every day. But that made me feel a little bit better, I'm normal. But the ultrasound technician made me angry because she asked us she asked us how old we were and how long we've been married. And then she, said, well, you're young and you have your life, you have several years to have kids, and you wait to have kids because you're early on in your marriage, and kids turn your life upside down. Just wait. And I'm just this isn't either the time nor the place nor the person. Okay, because I didn't say this to her because I was in such an emotional, I was so emotionally distraught that I didn't have the words to express the rage that I felt at the time when she told me that. Because I'm first of all, I don't know you. You don't know me. You have no idea about my experiences, my life, or my family. You don't know anything about my culture. You don't know if I'm religious or not religious. You're just spouting out stuff from your mouth from your own experiences, and you're projecting all your problems onto me. That's what I wanted to tell her. Maybe you had kids too early, and that messed up your life, and you feel like you blame your kids for your destroying your marriage. I don't know. But don't project that on me. and that's exactly what she was doing. It was kind of like that movie Juno, where the lady, I felt like I needed my Juno's mom to be there with me at that moment, because I needed somebody to speak up for me, and there was nobody. There was just me. And so, I called my husband. My husband's so polite. He was just worried for me. He wasn't paying attention to the woman. I needed somebody like her to be there and speak up for me, because I couldn't do it emotionally. I just could not do it. But like later on, I was, at the time I was mad, but later on I was like, this is what I would say to her if, this is what I would say to her if it happened now, and if I was like in my right mind at the time. I would tell her, I'm sorry that you had such a terrible experience with your marriage and having children in your life, but don't project your issues onto me. You don't know me, you don't know anything about my life, and you have no right to tell any woman what to do with her body, or when to do it, or how to have kids, or when to have kids, or anything like that. It's none of your business, mind yours, and shut the hell up and do your ultrasound thing. That's what I would have told her. And that's what I would tell any medical professional or anybody who feels the need to, for some reason, give you advice when you don't know the person. Only my mom can talk to me like that, and even I tell my mom sometimes, it's not your life, okay? And then that's it. And so, and like, that's it. So I even tell that to my mom sometimes. So if I tell that to my mom, I'm definitely gonna tell that to you. Like, it's not your life. You don't know me. Be quiet. And that's just a tip for anybody who feels, for whatever reason, like you should give advice to anybody younger than you, or anybody different than you, or anybody similar to you, about when to have kids, how to have kids, and if you should have kids, or what you should do with your pregnancy, whether you should be pregnant or whether you should not be pregnant, if you're too old, too young, whatever. It's none of your business. Be quiet. So I didn't ask you. If I ask you for advice, sure, give it to me. But especially when somebody's going through a miscarriage, I still don't understand what the hell was going on in that woman's mind when she told me that. Like, what the hell was going on in her mind when she said that? You see this woman in front of you having a miscarriage. You know that this is a traumatic experience for any woman, and you're sitting here trying to tell her what to do next, like with her life, not medically, but with her life. Oh, you're too young anyway. You're too young in your marriage. Like, maybe she felt emotionally uncomfortable and she felt the need to offer some comfort, and it came out in a really weird, strange, unwelcoming, and stupid way. But if you feel, for whatever reason, that you're uncomfortable with somebody's emotions, and you feel then the need to give advice, shut up. I will just tell you, shut up. Keep the advice in your head, because anything that you're going to say in that moment is just going to come out real stupid, and it's going to further hurt the person in front of you, which is not what you're trying to do. So if you feel the need to give advice when someone's emotionally distressed, shut the hell up. Just shut up. Unless they ask you, what should I do? And then just shut the hell up and listen to them. Or don't listen to them and don't ask questions. Just, do your job. Whatever it is that you're doing. Just, it's just, sometimes it's just better to say nothing than to have to feel like you need to talk. I think it's like an American thing of when you feeling like you need to talk or offer some kind of something. It doesn't matter if it's constructive or not. You have to offer something because you're uncomfortable with somebody's emotions. They're not your emotions to, deal with. Just let that person feel what they need to feel, and all you have to do is listen, or pretend to listen, and just say, or just don't say anything. I wasn't even talking to the lady. She just felt the need to insert herself in my life. So anyways, that's my tangent on that. I went left, but yeah, I'll come back. Anyways, a few days later, I go to the gynecologist, and I have another lab just to confirm that I had a miscarriage, to make sure that all of the hormone is out of my body, and then another pelvic exam to make sure everything's normal. I had no scarring, everything was normal in my cervix and uterus and everything. I was still actively miscarrying when he was giving me the exam, but he could still tell that everything was fine and normal. So he said that he would see the results, and then for the labs, and then he would call me with the results. So he called me like the next day, and he told me that I was not pregnant anymore. All the hormone was gone off my body. I could already tell that, because when you're not pregnant anymore, everything changes physically. Like, I was just in a better mood. I mean, I was sad, obviously, but it was just, I can't explain it. Like when I was pregnant, I felt like a zombie, whereas after the hormone was complete, like after the hormone was out of my body, I didn't feel zombie anymore. I felt energetic. And I just didn't feel angry like all the time. And yeah, so I could tell, but he just confirmed it with labs that I was not pregnant anymore. He said that I was healthy and I could have another kid as soon as, or I could get pregnant again as soon as the next month. He said it would basically just be up to my mental health state of when I wanted to get pregnant again rather than my body, because my body was ready again. I don't really agree with that. I mean, he is the doctor, so he would know, but I just don't feel like, I mean, the next month after having the miscarriage, I know my body was like resetting. So I don't know that my body would have just been like ready for another pregnancy. You know, it just was, it was an exhausting experience. Why would I be ready again in the next month? But that's what he said, and he is a man, so he's a man with a medical degree, yeah, but he's also a man. So he's obviously never been through a miscarriage before, so he wouldn't really know how it physically feels. But I know I've read things about women who have gotten pregnant right after a miscarriage, like the month after. So I know it's physically possible. I'm just saying, like physically possible structurally, I know, but physically possible as far as energy and all that goes, I don't think so. I don't think my body would have been able to. I think it was too stressful for my body, but that's just me. And so basically then it was just up to me to take care of my mental health. So one thing, when I reflected back on everything that I was doing when I was pregnant, like I know that I was not eating well. I know that I was not exercising. I know that I had too much on my plate, like as far as work and school. I was seeing clients. I was, like I said, I was working so much. And I was like in the middle of doing this project with work where I just felt kind of like everything was on me kind of to make sure that that there are results, because we spent a lot of money on this project. So I wanted to make sure that it's something that that we spent money on and it would have worked well and it would be perfect, and I wanted everything to be, it just felt like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders when it came to my job. And so it constantly stressed me out. Like as soon as I would get even like just an email from somebody at work, I would just feel like all of this immediate like stress and tension in my chest and in my stomach, and it would just feel like lava just boiling in my stomach and in my chest. And then I would feel like these tingling sensations in my spine. And then I would feel tension in my neck, shoulders, and jaw at night. And I told my mom about this, and she was just like, that's not good. You're too stressed out. You need to not be stressed out. And it's just like, great advice. How do you not be stressed out? So like anybody in my situation would be stressed out. So I wasn't slowing down when I was pregnant. When I did realize that I was pregnant, when I found out, I did like stop doing certain things, like obviously stop drinking alcohol, stop drinking so much caffeine. And I actually didn't drink that much caffeine. So regardless, I don't drink very much caffeine at all. But and I was trying to like eat healthier, but like I said, I wasn't eating very well, so sometimes I would skip meals, or I would have Belvita crackers for breakfast, which is not a good enough breakfast. But I would be doing those types of things, because I'm just not a breakfast person in the first place, unless it's like going out to eat and eating a breakfast. I'll do that, but like making breakfast at home and doing that, I've never been that kind of person that wanted to do that. So I continued to eat poorly. And, I never took like the time really to just take care of myself. So one of the things I did after the miscarriage was I started doing yoga, because one of the reasons that the miscarriage hurt me so much emotionally was because I was diagnosed with a connective tissue autoimmune disease 6 months before I got pregnant. And that made me feel disconnected from my body. Okay, so that made me feel disconnected from my body in a way, because I felt like I couldn't trust my body. The miscarriage was the tip of the iceberg for me, basically, because I was already feeling betrayed by my body. I was still adjusting to understanding the fact that for the past year, my white blood cells were attacking my tissues. I was noticing symptoms, but I wasn't. I also have a red blood cell condition where, but it's not like super severe. It's just very, very mild, and it's basically just makes me tired and cold. That's that's it. But I had that all my life. I've had it since I was a kid. I was born with that, so I've managed that fine all my life. And so I would get these symptoms though, like where my fingers were numb in the morning. I would wake up. It didn't matter like really what the temperature was, but my fingers were just white, and not pink. They were like white, and I couldn't feel my thumbs, and I couldn't feel these fingers either. So it was these main ones, and sometimes these here, and it was the same with my toes. And I was just kind of like, what's going on? Is it my hemoglobin? So I went to the doctor for a checkup. I go every year for a regular physical. And she did, labs, and she noticed my white blood cell count was extremely low, or abnormally low. And so she did another one, same results. She wanted to do another one. I told her, can you just refer me to a hematologist, please? Because I have another condition. And I feel like if these both have come back abnormal, then I need to see a specialist. So she had me referred to a hematologist. He did more extensive labs. He had the same results, and pinpointed certain white blood cells that were low. Then he referred me to a rheumatologist because I didn't have any of the symptoms of cancer. And he confirmed with a test that I didn't have cancer. So he referred me to a rheumatologist. The rheumatologist diagnosed me, and that was all in about 6 months. Like that all took half of a year to finally get a diagnosis and figure out a treatment plan and to get on medication. And so for 6 months I had been on this medication regimen and adapting to the fact that this is my life until I'm in remission, because he said I have a 75% chance of remission. So it's pretty high. Odds are in my favor, but I mean, some people don't have a remission, and that's just what it is. So then the miscarriage happened, and I kind of just felt like I was losing control of my body. I felt like I couldn't trust it to do the most basic things, like don't kill yourself. Body, don't do that. Don't have a miscarriage. Don't do that. You were created to, do this. So why aren't you doing it? This is like the biological, what you're supposed to do, with these human female parts. This is what you're supposed to do. And with my white blood cells, I was like, hey, what are you doing? You're supposed to be protecting me, not hurting me. So I just felt betrayed by my body completely. So I felt detached after the miscarriage. I just felt so detached from my body. I just felt like I didn't know it anymore, and I didn't trust it anymore, and I didn't accept it anymore. And it was hard for me because it took a long time for me to be able to accept my body, because when I was younger, I was bullied for years over being too skinny. In the Black culture, it's not cool to be skinny. In the white culture, it is. So when we moved to the suburbs, it was just so funny. When we moved to the suburbs, people started calling me like beautiful and hot and attractive, whereas when I lived in the city, it was like I was ugly, I was a stick, I was this. So it was just like, it's so interesting how the cultures are different, even though we live in the same country. But anyways, so it took me until probably high school to start to love my body for the way that it was. And so to have I just felt like these diagnoses, these medical issues, they tore all that away from me, and I was back in a place of just hating my body. So I started yoga because yoga connects you to your body. It connects you to your breath. It helps you focus on what your body is doing and staying present in the moment, and just accepting your thoughts, accepting your body for what it is. And it's kind of like, I think it's Carl Jung. Positive Psychology, or is that Rogers? I can't remember which one. Where you're just like unconditional positive regard. I think it's Young, but I don't know for sure. It's Young or Rogers. I probably should look that up and remember it. But unconditional positive regard, and just like accepting who you are for who you are. And all of the flaws that come with life. And so that's what I use yoga for. And it really helped to relieve a lot of stress. I still do it now because it helps me to release all of my tension. I did it a couple days ago. I was feeling stressed out from work, and so I did some yoga for like 10 minutes, and like it felt like a rag being wrung, and then like afterwards you like just, and then I felt like a cooked noodle, just like I felt so loose. And I fell asleep on the floor right after yoga that day because I was just, it felt so wonderful. It felt like all the poison was being sucked out of my body. So I recommend yoga for people who are dealing with an autoimmune disease, or who are suffering from miscarriage, or basically if you have any detachment feelings, if you're just feeling detached, or if you're feeling like you're just not accepting yourself. Yoga is a huge thing for like just helping you to accept this, this inner part of you, or outer part of you, and the inner part of you too, when you're doing the mindfulness activities. So I recommend that sometimes to some of my clients who have high anxiety or PTSD. I recommend doing mindfulness activities and doing exercise. Because the research shows that exercise, there was a research study that I read that showed that exercise created the same effects on people with depression, and as far as lowering depressive symptoms, as taking antidepressants. So, I'm not saying don't take your antidepressants, but if you did both at the same time, I mean, you increase your chances of having lower depressive symptoms over time, I think. But anyways, so that's my advice for that. And another thing that I did differently, or I'm doing differently, is eating better. I'm making sure I'm eating 3 times a day. Even if I don't feel like eating in the morning, I have to eat something, because it's just not healthy to eat 2 meals a day, or 1 large meal. Sometimes I was eating before. And that also just put things into perspective as far as like, what is important to me? Is school really the thing that's going to define my whole, my whole everything? Like, is that going to be the center of my world? And at the time it was. And so it made me realize that there's other things in my life that are more important than school. And I need to take time to think about what it is my body is telling me in the moment. If my body is telling me I'm too tired, then I'm too tired. Walk away. Do it later, or, whatever. If it's a deadline and you've got to meet it, then talk to somebody about changing the deadline, or just don't do it and get some points taken off. I've done that since then, and I still have an A. Like, the world goes on when you put yourself first for a change. The world continues. It doesn't fall apart. Imagine that. So yeah, just things like that. Just making sure that I'm taking care of myself, listening to my body, and eating better. I'm still not like eating amazingly, but I'm eating better. It's so interesting. If you go on Instagram and you look up hashtag autoimmune disease or autoimmune or whatever, there are so many people that are posting like pictures of their bodies in bikinis, or like posing in their muscles, or hiking, and just showing like that they're more than their disease. And that made me feel better, because I think that like for me, feeling disconnected with my body, it helped me to realize that like, yeah, this happened, but life goes on, kind of a thing. Not minimizing how I felt, recognizing that I feel that way and so do others, but then we can move on, not necessarily, I don't want to say move on. What am I trying to say? Acknowledging that's how you feel, and then building on that. Like, yeah, I feel disconnected. Am I going to sit here and feel this way forever? How do I fix it? How do I feel better? And for me, it was yoga. And I also, I am religious, so I also read my Bible. Other clients are not religious, so they'll do other things, and we'll talk about that. But for me personally, I read my Bible every day. That helps me too. Gives me hope. It strengthens my faith, and then I get to pray, and that also is another mindfulness thing. So there's a lot that I do personally to help myself. One of the things when you're a counselor is to not project your issues onto your clients. So when this happened to me, I talked to my school supervisor about it, and I was basically like, do you think I should tell my site supervisor? Do you think I should, step back from counseling? And she kind of was just like, it's up to you, and you have to really make that conscious decision yourself. I have a lot of children as my clients, so I felt like, is that going to trigger me or something? I was not triggered at all as a counselor. I was able to work with women who complained about being mothers. I was able to work with women who were tired of their children. I was able to work with children who were in for behavioral issues. I was able to do it all. It didn't matter to me. I didn't put my issues onto my clients, and I think that's because I took the time to deal with it myself and process it. And I also, because I took the time away from work, because I needed that week away from work, because I blamed my job for the miscarriage. Well, I blamed myself, but I also blamed my job, because I felt like if I weren't so stressed out at work, maybe I wouldn't have miscarried. And that's not, we don't know that for sure. Like the doctor said, it's not conclusive what caused it, and we don't know that for sure, but naturally, as people, we like to rationalize why bad things happen to us. And for me, it was my job. I was thinking about, and so I had to step away from my job because I was taking out my anger on the people around me, and that's not fair to them. But my counseling job, my internship, I wasn't taking out my anger on any of them. I didn't blame any of them for it. And I felt some kind of not therapeutic, I just felt useful. And that feeling made me want to keep on, living my life. I mean, I wasn't depressed in the sense of suicidal ideation or anything like that, but I was definitely wanting to just stay in bed sometimes and do nothing. But having something to do helped me to work with it just helped me to work on myself and realize that things happen to everybody, and I'm helping other people process their things, and I have to do the work on myself as well to process my things so that I can continue to help others. So I did take a little bit of a step back from counseling at the time, but not completely, because it wasn't something that was a trigger for me, and it wasn't an issue where I was projecting my issues onto my clients. I was really able to get out of I think that's the main reason why it didn't bother me. It's because counseling people allowed me to take my mind off of myself and get into the headspace of dealing with the person in front of me and their issues, and trying to figure out their aspect of, their life, their emotions, their thoughts, their cognitions, everything. Their world, basically, stepping out of my world and into theirs, leaving all of my stuff at the door and stepping into this blank canvas, which is this person's life, and just building off of that kind of a thing. And that's what we're taught in counseling school, is to leave yourself basically at the door, your, all of your stuff, your issues, your beliefs, your whatever, at the door, because it doesn't matter. What matters right now is the person in front of you. And so I think that's why counseling helped me so much, because I wasn't thinking about me and all my issues. I was thinking about this person. So that's probably why that wasn't a trigger for me. And I honestly was like, what if I have a client who is going to have an abortion, or thinking of having an abortion? Or what if I have a client who just had a miscarriage, or who's pregnant? I do have a client I can't tell you anything, but none of that ended up happening. But I also felt like if it happened, I would be fine. I felt like I wouldn't be triggered by it, which was so interesting, because we always talked about triggers in school, and I thought that it would be a trigger, and it wasn't. So you never really know what your triggers are going to be. For me, interestingly, my trigger was my job, which has nothing at all to do with anything. It's just my job. it's just where my miscarriage happened. It's where it started. And so for me, that was the trigger. And that was like, I have to step back from work because I'm taking out all of my anger on the people around me and on my job, and I'm not doing it well. So I just need to take mental health time away. And so I did that. Whereas counseling, I never blamed counseling or anything like that for any of it. So that was me. So I guess my advice, if you have been through a miscarriage, if you're going through it right now, if you have been recently diagnosed with an autoimmune disease and you're trying to process what this means for you, my biggest advice is to take a step back from whatever it is that's stressing you out. That may not be work. That may be, that may be something like your own family may be stressing you out. Maybe you need a vacation away from your family and you just need time to process it away from them. Whatever it is in your life that's stressing you out, it may not be what people might think it would be. You would think it probably for me would have been everything, school, work, and internship, but it only ended up being work. So I took a step back from work. You know what your trigger is. You know what it is in your life that's like the poison in your body. And that's how I describe how work was for me at that time. For me, it felt like poisoning. It felt like poison in my body. And so I needed to get away. So whatever it is, identify that and take some time away from it. And when you're taking that time away, don't just do nothing, work on yourself. What's going to make you feel more connected? How are you feeling, first of all? Just because you had a miscarriage or just because you have an autoimmune disease doesn't mean you feel the way that I felt. We all respond differently to trauma or to different life events and crises. So what is it that you're feeling? Identify that and then figure out what do you need to do to fix it, to put that glue back together to make it, feel. My supervisor explained counseling like this. He said, people grow as a tree, but then a tree branch may experience some trauma, like a lightning, and it will start growing like this, like slanted. So our job is to help them to feel like, to give them the tools to be able to grow back straight again. So what are the things that you need to grow straight again? And maybe you need to go to counseling. Maybe you don't need to go to counseling and you like to paint or journal or garden. That's another thing that I started doing. I started gardening because I saw that there was, I read a few years ago a research article on flora therapy, and it usually is used for on elderly people to help them process grief and loss. I felt like I'm not elderly, but I have experienced grief and loss in the span of 6 months, so I'm going to do this. Basically, I did a variation of it. I really didn't do exactly what the article said. But I just say the act of gardening in itself is therapeutic because you are uprooting the poison out of the ground that's suffocating the flowers or your crops or your plants or whatever. And then you are growing something. You're putting it into the ground. You're connecting yourself with the earth, and you are you're helping something to live that otherwise without you probably would not have lived. So for me, that was super poetic because of the miscarriage. And it also just made me feel more connected to nature, which was nice. So that's another thing that I recommend. So basically the biggest thing is just to take a step back, realize what it is that's stressing you out most at this time, take a step from it, and then figure out what it is that you need to do, what it is that you need. Do you need to just sleep? Do you need do you feel like weak? Do you need to work out? Do you need to stretch? Do you need to deep breathe? Like, what do you need? Figuring that out and just taking the steps to do those things, because it's really important. If you have children, if you have a job, if you are doing anything where people are relying on you, you're not going to be at your best if you're sitting here traumatized or dealing with your own crisis and trying to keep up appearances. You're not going to be at your best. You're going to be at your worst, and you're not going to perform. So it's kind of like IO a little bit there, but it's mostly mental health. They both go hand in hand. But yeah, just be responsible in recognizing when you need to step back and what you need to step back from, and what it is that you need going forward. So I hope that helped anybody who's dealing with anything remotely similar to what I've dealt with in the past several months. If you have any comments or questions, leave them below. If you want to see different, things, like if you want to see a vlog on my yoga routine or food, like a food vlog, then let me know and I can do that too, like food that I've been eating or whatever. Let me know. Thanks.